Hello folks, this is Pastor Mike Huggart coming to you from Studio 2014 with another Watchman video broadcast, Wrestling Against Powers. I have wrestled against powers before. The powers of witchcraft is what we're talking about. In my youth, it was a draw to me. I wanted to study witchcraft, I wanted to practice witchcraft. God kept me to a certain extent away from that. But it is influential, it is moving everywhere, and you and I who are born again, who love this book and love God's way, this is the power that you and I are wrestling against. We are wrestling against the fourth kingdom that's going to come on the earth. I left you last week with a little bit of what we call a cliffhanger. Now, if you don't know what that means, back in the old days of movies, back before television, studios would put out a series of movies about a certain character. And every Saturday, people would go to see the next episode of like The Lone Ranger or Tom Swift or Buck Rogers. And usually at the end of this movie, this week, they would leave the character hanging from a cliff, and you don't know if they were going to live or die. So you had to come back next week and watch the next episode. That's what the idea of a cliffhanger is. And I left you hanging in midair with this idea of what I found out about Cern. Let's back up just a little bit and get our bearings. I'm not going to recover too much information. Go back and watch last week's Watchman broadcast. But remember, we were on the trail of looking at Wicca and what it represented, what it was all about, who they worshipped or who they revered as a god. They honor what they refer to as the horned god, or the god with horns coming out of his head. Read Revelation 13. This is the beast that rises up out of the sea. He has 7 heads and he has 10 horns. Now I want you to remember this number 10 because it is associated with, in Daniel chapter 2, the fourth kingdom and the 10 toes. And the Bible says that those are 10 kings. Think of the number 10, and it represents dominion. 10 commandments represents dominion, or what is Paul said in Romans 7, the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. And so that number 10 represents dominion, power over something, the 10 toes that are standing on something, the 10 horns representing 10 kings. And so here we have witches. They admit that they worship. They don't say, now we worship the Antichrist and we think it's really good. They don't say that. They say they worship the horned god. Who does the Bible identify as the horned god? It is the beast rising up out of the sea. We noted from a Wikipedia article on Wicca and the horned god. Here's a quote from there. In the neo-pagan tradition of Strategia, founded by Raven Grimassi and based on the works of Charles Godfrey Leland, the horned god goes by several names, including Dianus, Faunus, Cern, and Actaeon.
A group has unveiled designs for a 7-foot-tall statue of Satan that it wants at the Oklahoma State Capitol. The New York-based Satanic Temple says if Oklahoma can put a 10 Commandments statue on the Capitol grounds, they should be able to put their statue on the grounds as well. KOCO's Rob Hughes is live at the State House to show us what this statue looks like. Good morning, Rob.
Katie, good morning. And that statue they want put right next to the 10 Commandments here at the state capitol. And I want to show you what this is going to look like. Take a look here. It's a 7-foot-tall, goat-headed demon sitting on a throne with 2 children next to it. The group Satanic Temple says it's formally submitted its application, and they are moving forward with plans, even though a state commission's put a moratorium on new requests.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Well, Sergeant Hartman, up until now, I was never really sure. There's been a lot of talk about this horned god, this androgynous Baphomet character in recent years, with different interpretations given for its origin and its symbology. I never gave any of it my attention, but then something came over me. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I soon realized that this Baphomet character is exactly what should have been in a few of my videos like Star Wars, The Dragon Awakens, for one, all along. Especially knowing that this monstrosity is a central figure of various occult groups. Now, there are many videos and many websites out there that go into great detail about this character's possible origin, so there is no need to waste my time repeating it. Like my previous videos, this video is all about making the necessary connections that I don't see being done. First and foremost, we see from earlier in this video that Baphomet is of the horned god archetype, taking some inspiration from ancient pagan horned gods, one of which was an old Celtic deity that just so happens to be called Cernanos, or Cern. And now here today we have a scientific group that goes by the same name called Cern. They happen to have the same name of a pagan deity in the fact that practically every nation, every corporation, every foundation you can think of has poured billions into this group. Is not at all putting to ease my suspicions of them. So I'll only focus on a few attributes of this Baphomet character as described by an occultist named Eliphas Levi, since it is his depiction of this horned god that is used by various occult groups almost exclusively. The Children of Disobedience seems to be infatuated with this horned god, as he seems to be even in music videos, as many have pointed out time and again. And now the Children of Disobedience are pouring in money to this group called Cern, the horned god by another name. So let's find out why, and get to the bottom line of what this figure is all about. In my video titled Star Wars, The Dragon Awakens, I explain that Satan, the Dragon of Revelation, will come to be worshipped by the world as a sort of dualistic force of nature from which all life originates, who resides within everything we see and within all living cells, which is the very basis of pantheism, and as explained in some of the oldest pantheistic religions on the planet, namely the Tao. They believe that the Tao expresses itself throughout everything and throughout the cosmos as dualistic, as polar yet complementary of opposites, as yin and yang. Understanding this, we see that it's religions like this that partly inspired Levi's depiction of Baphomet. Like the Tao, he also describes Baphomet as symbolic of the law of opposing forces, that through the alchemical process, or the great work, as the Masons will call it, comes together in perfect equilibrium to create what he calls the flame of intelligence, represented by the torch, the universal life force, the astral light, also symbolized by Baphomet's phallic symbol, which is a symbol referred to as the caduceus. Keep in mind, too, that it is also said that the pentagram on his forehead represents the 5 elements: air, earth, water, fire, and spirit. And the 5th element, the spirit, is represented by the flaming torch. The 5th scales represents water, the semicircle represents air, and the sphere that Baphomet is sitting on is earth. And they believe that by harnessing this magical power, that we will become one with the cosmos, that we will be as God above, symbolized by Baphomet's hands, which is a sign of Hermeticism, meaning as above, so below. That which is below will become the same as that which is above. And now we look at the Large Hadron Collider at Cern headquarters, and we see that their intention is exactly the same. Just like Baphomet, the collider operates by the law of opposing forces, by the law of yin and yang, by slamming 2 particles together at the speed of light, and by the union of these opposing forces, by the union of the thesis and the antithesis, that we get a synthesis. They expect a reaction. They expect to find the key to the origin of everything. Now, many believe that Baphomet is somehow a representation of Satan or the Antichrist. I, on the other hand, believe that, based on everything we know, that he is in fact an agent of Satan, that he is the angel that's referred to in Revelation as a star that falls from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit. Cern is the star, and the Large Hadron Collider is the key. And for all we know, Cern may very well be the angel's real name. Now, I'll leave you with the video from Cern's website that gives a simple explanation for how the key works.
Insignificant though this bottle of compressed hydrogen gas looks, it marks the beginning of the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator chain, culminating in Cern's spectacular Large Hadron Collider. Hydrogen atoms from this gas cylinder are fed at a precisely controlled rate into the source chamber of a linear accelerator, Cern's LINAC 2, where their electrons are stripped off to leave hydrogen nuclei. These are protons and have a positive charge, enabling them to be accelerated by an electric field. Their journey to eventually take part in ultra-high energy collisions similar to those following the Big Bang can now begin. This initial acceleration has caused LINAC 2 to be likened to the lumbering first stage of a huge rocket. By the time this packet of protons leaves Linac 2, it'll be travelling at 1/3 the speed of light. It's about to enter the booster, stage 2 of the rocket if you will. In order to maximise the intensity of the beam, the packet is divided up into 4, one for each of the booster's rings.
I call upon the spirit of autumn, the spirit of water, of the ebb and flow of emotion, of open seas and running streams, of cleansing rain, spirit of the evening sun, of twilight and of autumn. I call upon the spirit of winter, the spirit of earth, the womb of creation, of night and the snows of winter, deep roots and ancient stones. I call upon the spirit of spring, the spirit of air, the breath of life, of sunrise and of new life and new growth. I call upon the spirit of summer, the spirit of fire, of energy and of passion, the spirit of the noonday sun, the heat of summer, vitality and abundance. My friends, let the festival commence.
Straight acceleration is now impractical, and the booster is circular, 157 metres in circumference. In order to accelerate the packets, they are repeatedly circulated, and the electric field is now pulsed, in the same way that you push a child on a swing each time they reach a certain point. Magnets exert a force on the passing protons at right angles to their direction of motion, and so powerful electromagnets are used to bend the beam of protons round the circle. The booster accelerates the protons up to 91.6% of the speed of light and squeezes them closer together. Recombining the packet from the 4 rings, it's then flung on into the proton synchrotron, by analogy stage 3 of our rocket. Let's just follow 2 such proton packets. The proton synchrotron is 628 metres in circumference, and they circulate for 1.2 seconds, reaching over 99.9% of the velocity of light. It's here that the point of transition is reached, a point where the energy added to the protons by the pulsating electric field cannot translate into increased velocity, as they're already approaching the limiting speed of light. Instead, the added energy manifests itself as increasing mass of the protons. In short, the protons can't go faster, so they get heavier. The microscopic kinetic energy of each proton is measured in units called electron volts, and now the energy of each proton has risen to 25 giga-electron volts, or GeV. The protons are now 25 times heavier than they are at rest. The packets of protons are now channeled into stage 4, the superproton synchrotron, a huge ring 7 kilometers in circumference, designed specifically to accept protons at this energy and increase it to 450 GeV. Soon, the packets of protons will be energized sufficiently to be launched into the orbit of the gigantic Large Hadron Collider, or LHC, which lies between the Jura Mountains and the Alps, and straddles both France and Switzerland. Lying deep underground, it has a circumference of 27 kilometers. There are 2 vacuum pipes within the LHC containing proton beams travelling in opposite directions. Using ultra-sophisticated kickers to synchronize incoming packets with those already circulating, one vacuum pipe has injected into it protons which will circulate clockwise, and the other protons which will circulate anti-clockwise. The counter-rotating beams cross over in the 4 detector caverns, where they can be made to collide. The energy of the collision is double that of the individual opposing protons, and it's the debris from these collisions that is tracked in the detectors. For half an hour, the SPS injects protons. Finally, there are 2,808 packets. During this time, the LHC adds extra energy to each proton, whose velocity is now so near the speed of light that it goes round the 27-kilometre ring over 11,000 times each second, getting a boost of energy at each revolution from the pulsed electric field. Finally, each proton has an energy of 7 tera electron volts, and they're 7,000 times heavier than at rest. The magnetic force needed to keep the beams bending to the ring is so enormous that nearly 12,000 amps must flow through its electromagnets. This is achieved by making the LHC colder than outer space, so that its magnets become superconducting. Now the protons are ready to collide in the detectors. A steering magnet finally brings them onto a collision course. The total energy of 2 protons colliding in the LHC is 14 tera electron volts and reproduces similar states to moments after the Big Bang. Particle tracks from these collisions will be analysed by computers connected to the detectors, and it's hoped these tracks will give a new insight into the very birth of our universe, how our universe has evolved, what governs its behaviour today, and where it's going in the future.